The millennia-spanning war between the Jedi and Sith saw many more innovations in the Force than any of thousands of years that the Jedi spent in meditation. Both sides, mostly the Sith, began to realize that the lightsaber wasn't going to be the thing that would vanquish their rival once and for all. With every war that happened, the Jedi might have been badly damaged, though they continued to remain a beacon of peace and justice for the Republic. As for the Sith though, no matter how many times they were squashed by the Jedi, there would always be someone who would revive the Order, and each time they came back, they swung it in a completely new direction than ever before. While the Sith were constantly trying something new, we have discovered some interesting information that may reveal that the Jedi had been playing the long game, and that their journey towards ultimately weakening the Sith with every generation had almost worked. Greetings again, Acolytes of the Force, and welcome back to the Archives. In today's Holocron, we are going to talk about how the Jedi actually had been 2 steps ahead of the Sith for thousands of years, and why the Sith had been so severely weakened, with the Jedi nearly destroying them entirely before the birth of the Rule of Two. We must look at exactly why the Sith abandoned the teachings of the most powerful iterations of their order, and how the Jedi used this to their advantage. If we look back through all of the wars fought between the Jedi and Sith, it always looks as though the Sith are the ones coming up with the wild new plots, powers, and machines in order to destroy the Jedi. However, the Jedi don't seem to change very much at all, and yet continue to be the victors. Most scholars would attribute this to Sith infighting, which of course was a problem. However, upon looking into the Book of the Sith, we begin to understand that the Sith may have actually began to weaken sometime after the ending of the old Sith Wars, and it all has to do with their original homeworld of Korriban. In Sorcerer Sin's chapter on the Book of the Sith, she is detailing from her perspective, which was about 6,900 BBY, that Korriban was something like a wellspring of darkness, how the dark side was so potent there that the air that it felt was constantly filled with electricity all around them. However, in the margins of this writing, Darth Sidious makes his own note. Korriban has lost its potency over the past 7,000 years, but it still whispers of dark secrets. At first glance, this single sentence doesn't seem to carry much meaning at all, and among more experienced Legends readers, it's common knowledge that Korriban is a shadow of its former self. But what does this mean for the Sith and the Jedi and their Great War? What does Korriban have to do with any of this? Korriban had been the hub of Sith for just about every time period that they returned, beginning back in the days of the Dark Jedi who first touched down on the world and began to harness the power and secrets of the ancient Dark Planet. During the golden age of the Sith around this time of the Great Hyperspace War, Korriban was the capital of the Sith Empire, which spanned over 200 systems by this point in time. Korriban was a mainstay for the Sith, as they all felt an intrinsic connection to the planet due to the dark powers that were still left undiscovered within the sands. Korriban had first gained its reputation for potency after a long history of Sith kings, all of whom practiced their own form of dark side sorcery. The Reign of the Axe is where we can attribute the very beginnings of this potency. The Sith Lord King Adis, who was a unique Sith pureblood at the time, used his might to ascend to the rank of king, as he rallied all of the warring tribes of the Sith together with his sheer strength alone. When the ancient Rakatan Empire had tried to invade their world of Korriban, King Adis saw straight through their shrewdness, as they had tried to present themselves as allies to the ancient Sith king. King Adis led his people against the Rakata, and despite still being a mostly primitive species with only bladed weaponry against much more advanced Infinite Empire tech, they still drove the Rakata off-world, with King Adis finally dying after slaying hundreds of Rakatan warriors himself. It was after this when the Sith would discover the technology for interstellar travel and the knowledge of creating holocrons, all from which was left behind by the Rakata. For the next thousands of years, kings would rise and fall, each containing their own dark knowledge which would be buried with them in the Valley of the Dark Lords. The sheer amount of dark side rituals that took place on Korriban made it a forced nexus on its own. Just for reference, it only really takes one incredibly powerful ritual to taint an entire area, or sometimes even an entire planet with the dark side. But on Korriban, it was done over and over, until every aspect of the world was infused with the dark side itself, even down to the flora and the fauna. Every animal, every insect, any small, seemingly insignificant creature was dark side in allegiance. It's important that we set this precedent so that we can know how important it was when the Jedi raided the Valley of the Dark Lords following the defeat of Naga Sadow. For the first time, at the end of the Great Hyperspace War, the Republic and the Jedi took control of the Sith world of Korriban as the Sith fled to Yavin 4. It was here where the Jedi would personally investigate the world, and over the course of the next few decades, they would conquer the dunes of the Dark Planet and traverse through the ancient ruins and tombs. And it is here where the Jedi made a decision that would cripple the Sith forever. They would carry away all the dark side artifacts and knowledge as plunder. The Jedi would destroy the most dangerous ones, or simply keep some of the others in the vault in their archives on the world of Ossus. Sith holocrons, amulets, weaponry, all stowed away or destroyed by the Jedi. It absolutely cannot be understated how devastating of a blow this was to the Sith. Soon, the Jedi would even begin to remove the bodies of the Sith kings, moving their bodies to more safe locations, along with their scrolls and tomes. What was left was a hollow husk, devoid of all the objects and things that maintained the world's power. Of course though, there were a few Sith that reclaimed some of these prizes, such as Exar Kun, who as a Jedi had collected one of the Sith holocrons and learned from it before striking out on his own and finding Yavin 4. Exar Kun was the primary hoarder of Sith knowledge, but even he only maintained a fraction of what the ancients had discovered. And following this, the destruction of the Great Library on Ossus, along with it came the destruction of many ancient dark side secrets. And without these artifacts, the potency of Korriban began to fade. Thousands of years would pass, and its power would wane. In the Great Galactic War of the Old Republic, the resurrected Sith Empire's first plan was to retake Korriban, a mission that was won by Darth Malgus. However, the Sith of this time stated that they could sense that Korriban was nothing like what the ancient ruins had foretold, only an echo of its past powers. Even the Brotherhood of Darkness thousands of years later would use Korriban as their academy world, but they admitted that there was nothing to be found on Korriban any longer. And Bane found out the hard way as he tried to traverse the Valley of the Dark Lords to find ancient knowledge from the old Sith, but ultimately found nothing. Nothing but sand and bones. Unlike before, without this knowledge, every time the Sith tried to rise again, they would be weaker. The Jedi had removed thousands of years of dark side secrets from their order, the single largest blow that the Sith have ever received. A form of informational warfare, one that the Jedi had won. At the end of this, the Brotherhood of Darkness was the Sith at their worst, and they made a mockery out of the dark side with how they operated. It would only be Darth Bane who would undertake the journey to finding whatever was left of ancient Sith knowledge from other places, and he was ultimately victorious. Using the surviving wisdom of the ancients such as Revan, Bane was able to remake the Sith into the rule of two, who culminated in Sidious. But with that, my friends and acolytes, I pose this reality to you. Darth Bane only found a small fraction of what the ancient Sith had discovered, a small fraction of its power. If the Sith ancients had maintained that knowledge, and the bodies of the kings, their holocrons, their very knowledge was maintained on the world of Korriban, the Jedi would be a blink in the galaxy. The Sith would have destroyed the Jedi and taken the Republic over and over again, if not for this one fatal victory on the Jedi's behalf. If this had not happened, the Republic and the Jedi would be no more, and the Sith would truly have reigned eternal. But anyway, my friends and acolytes, what are your thoughts on this and this fatal blow that the Jedi struck against the Dark Lords? As always, my friends, may the Force be with you, and I hope that you're having an amazing day.